Evening. Um, I apologize for my attire for the evening. I'm a satellite guest here, still getting over COVID. I'm on the tail end of it. I am feeling a lot better. Um, I'm going to give the floor to my guest again, just like last week, and hopefully it doesn't time out this time. So I'm going to stay by my desk and click some buttons here and there to keep it going. So I will let you guys take it away.
All right. Well, thanks for being back. Thanks for operating. Because last week we were about a half hour off because I thought
Technical
I was
difficulty.
10 seconds.
You thought you were good, but you wasn't good.
Yeah, I was looking for a button for forever in the day. But no, today we're going to continue with our discussion. Like I said, I've been trying to probe people, and I hope they're watching out there. It's not Big Bad Wolf. It's not um, difficult discussions from the standpoint of it being contentious, it being hostile, it being volatile. It's just open discussion with different points of view, and that's what we really want is to get these different points of view. But kind of what we talked about last week was the governor of Michigan, specifically Gretchen Whitmer, kind of her stance and her actions over the last 9 months, and kind of drawing our opinions on it, getting some information, getting some more data on it. Today, I'm going to kind of spin that to really represent two parties or two ideologies, two philosophies, and get you all's opinion on it. But I'm Vernon, educator. If you talk about it, at least let it come from experience or education in it. Otherwise, you're just talking out your butt. So that's our goal is even if you don't have the experience, get educated through someone else or educate us, educate me. So I've gotten a lot from this, but now I'll go to our guest, highly educated people. Introduce yourselves. I'll start with Stacy.
It is Stacy Deering, aka Professor D, your favorite political science professor in the Metro Detroit area.
All right.
All right. D Easley, De'Aaron Easley, whatever you want to call me. Just call me Easley if you have to. Telecommunications major, Michigan State University. As you can see, Full Sail University is where I got my master's from, media design. However, I find most joy in my minor, which is history, which I also got from Michigan State, obviously. So that's me.
All right. Man, this is a lot of heavy hitters. Then we got Johnny. He's being our tech guy now. He's our he's our producer behind the window. So we're kind of talking about last week. We were talking about the executive orders. We were talking about how they stem, where we're going, where we're back at, what we're looking at with numbers. And my first question really is something I posed in the group chat. And I'm finding it confusing to me from civilians. I'm regular Joe Schmoes like us. From the conservative angle, I see a lot of people that don't think that mask mandates and things like that are justified or lawful, and they want to defy those orders, and they think that they're stupid. Conversely, business owners that think that, that these orders are just hurting them and like out to get them. And now we've just seen the first batch of the vaccine go out in England. And where I'm confused is, and I don't know you all's opinion on this, what extent are people really putting on their visceral response, their anger, if they're not willing to do anything to help curb this virus, to help curb and, get us back to normal? What do you all think about people that refuse to wear masks or don't want to wear masks, or people that just outright now say, I'm not going to get the vaccine?
Just
And,
say, and everything will be okay. Is that what they were saying 6 months ago?
Hey,
Mm-hmm.
I won't even get it to that. You just follow the rules, and bad things don't happen. Yeah, but what's you all's opinion about courses of action from your standpoint? What are you willing to do or practice, and where do you stand with the vaccine?
Stacey, you want to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
So it was actually just a press conference earlier today that Governor Whitmer gave her update, and she said, and of course Dr. Cajun spoke, right, that the vaccine will be available here in Michigan as early as next week. But for me, I don't feel I'm a good vaccine candidate. I have never took vaccinations, so not since I was a little kid and it was required for preschool. So I don't feel compelled to get the vaccine, especially in the first stages. I've never even had a flu vaccine, and I rarely catch the flu. But this year, what I've noticed is that flu numbers are going down because most of us are wearing a mask, so we're less exposed and we're more conscious of, sanitizing our hands and washing our hands and being more conscious about that. And me personally, I normally have a lot of sinus issues throughout the year because Michigan weather is bananas. I haven't even had any because I'm wearing a mask. So I'm not really exposed to the elements that trigger that to happen in the air because I have a mask on. So I personally will not be taking the vaccine. I know they want to get it to people in nursing homes. They want to get it to the medical professionals, the frontline workers, and they were determining from a national perspective how they were going to vet who gets the vaccines first and in what order. And it's up in the air whether they're going to make it mandatory for certain fields in certain areas. I'm not sure how that's going to play out either. I know in the past, some career paths and places made it mandatory to get the flu vaccine. So I'm not sure how that's going to be, but I know that can cause an uproar as far as invading a person's rights, to refuse, depending on how they try to layer that. As far as wearing masks, and this is probably going to sound funny, but it's about to be cold outside. I mean, you kind of might want to wear one to stay warmer anyway, but I feel like personally, from a personal standpoint, that masks have been beneficial. Like we've exchanged less germs and we've probably saved thousands of lives that we'll never know, but for our governor and our health department strongly suggesting, encouraging, and creating ordinances and orders to enforce it and businesses complying, well, most of them complying with wearing a mask. I believe it's had more of a positive than an adverse effect, honestly. So I'm not sure how you would justify at this point when the numbers keep going up at the national and state level, not doing something so simplistic as wearing a mask. It's become part of our fashion. I have like 25 masks now. I have a mask with my names on it and all types of stuff. So I don't know why it's such a heavy pushback because I'm still having a hard time processing how it infringes on your liberties or your personal rights because you're not being falsely imprisoned. You're not being detained. You're personally not being violated. Now, I know some people may have respiratory issues that interfere with the length of time they can wear their mask, but now they're coming out with so many different variations of masks that you could probably find one that helps you with those issues. So that's my standpoint.
All right. For me, about the vaccination, I'm just going to say this: the Tuskegee Project.
I can see that.
All right, that's been on the back of my mind for months, and I just can't get that out the back of my mind, especially when they said, if you remember, I think late spring, early summer, that they wanted to try the vaccines in Africa first.
Yes, I remember that, definitely.
And that just turned me completely off from the vaccine. So it's just like, you know what? I'd rather just do the things I can do, like boost my immune system, take my supplements, take extra supplements, do all of that. As far as vaccine goes, at least right now, no. That's enough for me. And as far as what we're seeing with people not wearing masks and doing what they want to do, it starts from the top. Unfortunately, it starts from the top. And with his language and his attitude towards everything, it's just kind of worse. Not wearing masks, not, they're going to cancel Christmas. They're going to cancel Thanksgiving. All this decisiveness. And I posted in the group chat, was it yesterday or was it this morning? About the nurse who had a patient in her wing who had a Thanksgiving party
yesterday.
With 20.
Yep, that was yesterday. And 20 people. Yep.
20 people, and they decided to separate the people with COVID in another room.
Right.
It's like, you realize that even with masks, there's still a chance that you can still get COVID because you're eating,
Yeah.
you're
Of course, but I
drinking.
mean,
While you're doing
you
that, you're
also
breathing, and that stuff
like
just doesn't automatically fall to the ground. You stay in the atmosphere or where you're at for I think 3 hours.
Mhm.
Yeah, something like about 3 hours.
goes back to his status.
Especially in a poorly ventilated room. So we actually got to do what we have to do in terms of not just for us, for everybody else. We were discussing this last week. I most likely had it last year. Week before Christmas. I'll say this: people say, Johnny was talking about this earlier. People were saying, "Oh, it's a 99% survival rate."
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. That's worse. Even going through chemotherapy,
Mm-hmm.
in many aspects, I have never felt that sick in my life. Going through that 5 weeks of being hit with what they suspect now is COVID, and it's been almost a year. I'm still having neurological issues. I don't wish that on anybody.
Right.
I'll also say this. Do you realize if it's a 99% survival rate, let's say everybody in the United States gets it. Let's just say that. Do you realize that 3 million people dying?
Yeah. There's a lot of people.
That's unacceptable to me.
Mm-hmm.
If you're willing to
Especially-
sacrifice 3 million people just to have, just so you can do whatever you want to do,
Yeah.
that's insane to me. And what I'm thinking, I've been talking to people who are on that side. I had to tell them this: we went through the pandemic in 1918. There was I won't say it was a mask mandate.
No, they were. They were required to.
They were required. Not it wasn't
Mhm.
national, but it was like sort of like Denver.
Yeah,
Philadelphia,
different states. Yeah.
right. And it happened because of World War II. World War II ended in 1918.
Yeah, when the soldiers came back home, they brought it back in.
Right, and everybody was out in the street celebrating the end of the war. So that just made things worse. So that's one thing. Another thing I tell people is, to a lesser degree, you wouldn't have survived World War II and what I call the war drills, where you have to, the blackout drills and stuff, where you couldn't go anyplace.
Mm-hmm.
So what we have done now, saying, oh, there's no war, there's no chance to be us, being bombed or whatever. I want to go to the restaurant. I want to go to church. I want to do this. I want to do that. It's like, come on, you need to sacrifice something. And the last thing I want to say is, 2 things. Well, it's 2 things, but they're kind of connected. In Australia, or was it New Zealand, where they had their first concert over the weekend, this past weekend?
Look
it
it
was
up.
like a rave.
I'll check it.
And they had the strictest lockdown protocols in the world. And they're COVID-free right now, and they're back to living life. It took them 8 months to do it. But they're where they were pre-pandemic, and that's where the plan was always was. But they had a society to understand what they had to do. And they actually sacrificed, everybody sacrificed something to actually get to where the nation needed to get. And I also think about Japan as well, and to a lesser extent China. I think China does this as well, where they wear masks anyway in the streets, just for the common cold, and the flu and stuff. So they're used to it. And even there, if there's like a spike of 100 cases, they'll shut things down for a while. So we have to understand that what we're seeing in the United States, in my personal opinion, is more of a selfish attitude that we have. And that starts from the top, because
curious.
I'll say this: any other president,
What did you say, Johnny?
I was curious if
What are you saying, Johnny?
they're already dead. It's
You were breaking up.
You can't hear me? I'm just
Yeah,
Now
we
we
can.
can.
okay. Yeah, I was just doing a mic check.
Oh, mic check. Gotcha. So, Darren, I'm gonna kind of touch on both of you all's points. It was
right.
New Zealand it's more that their concert industry isn't. They don't have to go through the social distancing elements. They don't have to go through a lot of protocols. They are having concerts as concerts, theoretically should be. I'm kind of torn, really, 2 ways. I'm gonna give you all like my perspective as my job. Every kid that goes to public school, unless you have an exemption, which very few do, has to be vaccinated. I'm wondering if the COVID vaccine is going to be a part of that protocol for students to attend school. You just have to bring a record of all your vaccinations, your mumps, your measles, your all of those vaccinations that you get periodically through your infancy. You have to bring record of those. I'm wondering if COVID, especially because of the pandemic element, it should not, in my opinion, be that hard to add it to the list. Now, the Tuskegee experiment element, I would be with that, but the Tuskegee experiment was directly used against African Americans during a time where African Americans were not thought of as equals in so many different facets. This vaccine will be voluntary to everybody in society, rich, poor, like it's no control group that I think the government's trying to get. And so from my end, that would be one thing. But I do think it's interesting trying to look at this from the standpoint of liberal mindset, conservative mindset. And I think Stacey kind of touched upon it. She's not going to get the vaccine because she is following another effective method, in her opinion, of combating the virus. And I'm not putting words in your mouth. That's not changing anytime soon. Whether people are vaccinated, whether numbers go down, that's not going to change anytime soon for you. And I'm just trying to find the conservative opinion of it where they don't want to wear the mask and they don't want to get the vaccine. Like, if you're not willing to do anything, then why do you expect, like, that's just really, you want somebody to change something with literally no responsibility on individuals. People in our group chat have mentioned, well, we should just go hardcore lockdown for 2 weeks and then, we'll get this under control and then let everybody get back to their lives. That's not how the virus works. It depends on contraction time and things like that. And the negligence of one person having the virus, that's why some of these events have been called super spreader events, because if one person has it, the infection rate is almost 10 times that of the seasonal flu. Seasonal flu, you can typically possibly infect 2 to 3 people if they have direct contact with you. With this, it can infect almost 10 to 20 people just from being in your presence without meeting any of the standard CDC guidelines for protection. My next kind of question with this for the group is, what will the new normal look like, in your opinion, and are you comfortable with that? So if restaurants are 50% capacity until next fall, if you still have mask mandates at workplaces and things like that, like, are you all still okay with that and taking your same measures, even working from home?
Really don't.
I'll be honest, I haven't even thought that far.
Vaccine really permeates through society.
What were you saying, Johnny?
I don't really think much is going to change until the vaccine permeates through society. Once you get to a point where it has a bedrock and you do see effective change because of them, because there are multiple vaccines, I think you're really going to see what we have right now continuing until that happens. And maybe once that breach occurs, when we see that the vaccine has started to take hold, I think you'll see a lot of that stuff relax, especially like the capacity limits, theaters, things of that nature. We're on the cusp of getting back to what we as Americans would call normal. I don't think you're going to ever see a landscape in this country where we embrace just wearing masks to wear masks. So if they are saying vaccines are effective, people are definitely going to opt to stop wearing the masks. Now, as far as everyone taking the vaccine, you're just not going to see that. I'm not an anti-vaxxer or anything like that, but I typically don't take the flu vaccine just because I don't want to feel those effects, and I'm not someone that typically gets sick. I'm not really someone that interacts with people too often to begin with. I'm more of a homebody. So like, I literally have COVID right now, but I'm still not, chomping at the bit to take their vaccine. And my own personal issues are just the fast track nature of it. I don't want to be a test subject.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I would rather, people want to take it. And if they're okay, then okay. Because it's like, when you look at like pharmaceutical commercials, we've gotten to a point now where it's commonplace to hear in these commercials where they say one of the side effects is death. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
granted, it could only be two people that experience it. I don't want to be one of those two people. So once it's out in the
Yeah.
field and we see that it's something that's viable, I may consider it. If my job tells me I have to take it, then that's a cross I'll have to come to at that point and decide at that time, based on the climate, is it something that I feel I need to do? Obviously, I need to work. But until that occurs, I'm probably going to hedge my bets and hold off as long as I can. But to your question, like I was saying, once the vaccines are shown to be working, I see that we're going to go back to our status quo. Because, like, the country we
Right.
live in,
And
the
that's
society
where my
we express,
yeah.
we don't like taking shit. We don't like taking shit from anybody, not the
Yeah.
government, not police, not people,
Mhm.
not anybody.
That's true.
So
Right.
if I don't want to do something because it inconveniences me in any capacity, there's going to be pushback because we as American people are used to not having to do things we
Right.
don't like to do typically. Like take seatbelts. When that started to become a thing where they were like, hey, we're going to start enforcing seatbelts, but we can't pull you over for specifically that. But if you're doing something else and we see you're not wearing a seatbelt, you'll get a ticket. People were like, oh, well, that kind of sucks, but whatever. And then like 6 months after that, hey, we're doing checkpoints specifically for seatbelts and we'll give you tickets. So it's slowly encroached on people like, hey, you're going to have to do this. And some people outright refused. I don't want to wear a seatbelt. I don't like it. Regardless of, what we see happens when you wear them, the way that vehicles are designed are to work in conjunction with airbags and seatbelts to protect you. So it took time. And after a while, most people gravitate to that. Most people, when they get in their vehicle, they put on their seatbelt. Some people can't. Some people, it's obstructive. It is what it is. Everybody's different. But I think what you find in this country is that people have too much free time. We have too much free time and we have access to infinite information, and that creates an anti-activism mindset in some people. You want views, you want clicks. I'm going to say this thing that I know some people are going to resonate with, regardless of whether or not it's accurate, factual, right, wrong, what have you. I can garner a response and following of people by speaking on certain terms. And unfortunately, one of the biggest, loudest voices that we've had to deal with in the last 4 years expressed a lot of that opinion. So people gravitated to it because it's what they wanted to hear, regardless of how it affects people. Did I take COVID super seriously? Not really. I have a mask. I wear it. It's something we have to wear at work. I still got it, and that's probably because it was an incident where I wasn't wearing it when I should have, and it is what it is. But, I hope that by this time next year, things will be back to the way they were around 2019. Maybe not as loose because we've had to come through a door, but that door should look familiar.
Mhm.
It's been a while since I've got to talk, so sorry for being long.
No, man, it's good to hear you.
Go ahead. That's good stuff.
So like, and that's my point is, it's interesting how many people want to fight and want that freedom, but honestly aren't willing to do what's needed for that freedom. Like, and I'm saying I'm fine with everything that's happening right now. Like I've been fine. I'm not losing anything by not going to bottom of the fifth, on a Friday night after a football game for a couple beers. Like that's not hurting my life. But losing family members, losing associates, like those things, and not even being able to mourn them, those things were impacting life.
Go to my aunt's.
So now just kind of adding.
Oh wait, Johnny was. Go ahead, Johnny.
I just
'Cause
said
that's important. Say it.
I can't go to my aunt's funeral next week. It's only like super immediate family that they're allowing to be in the building.
I think it's like
can go.
25 people they allow. I think.
Yeah, it's just it's terrible. I'm sorry.
And
I
it's
didn't mean
tough. And even with so much, that kind of goes back to our conversation last week. I talked about the nursing homes, there's a difference between some of these orders and health department regulations and people's operating procedures. I've been talking about it all this week. The head of the MHSAA, and I don't want to get like in trouble with them, even though I can't, but there's a lot of pointing, well, we're waiting for the governor. We're waiting for the governor. No, where's the proactive nature of this? Where is, if you wanted to conclude seasons, you would have put out protocols in advance and sent those to the governor, said these are the things that we are going to follow so that we can conclude our fall seasons and move into our winter seasons. Where, I mean, I'm talking as a former wrestling coach that's got tons of friends that are wrestling coaches. We still don't even have guidelines for wrestling. You know, it's become a big joke with Ohio with the whole element of wrestling can happen, but there's no handshakes with the opponents or handshakes of the coaches and teams after you wrestle, which kind of blows your mind. Like, I just was laying on you, breathing on you, touching you intimately for 6+ minutes, and now all of a sudden I can't do this. Like, what sense does that make? But it's still, the one thing I say, even if it's stupid, it is still a protective measure. Whether you think it doesn't have an impact or it's one protective measure that you can show that is a good faith act in trying to combat this. And I think a lot of industries, the restaurant industries, some of those owners that talked about defying the governor's order, they kind of backpedaled and said, well, what we need to do is come together to give some parameters that we will all comfortably follow, that can help us stay open, that can help us do these things. And I appreciate that, because you are taking active steps in helping the problem, not just complaining that there is one and somebody else is taking things away from you.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's all interesting, but I want to now kind of transition us, because I kind of threw a little thing out there about Ohio, and we talked about it last week, how they have a Republican governor. Ohio's as much of a red state as possible, and they are complaining literally just as much about their governor, just as much about everything as people in Michigan are complaining about Governor Whitmer. And I just think it's interesting, because I don't know how far in front of their faces some people see, but if people are locking down in Great Britain, if people are locking down in New Zealand, or not New Zealand, Sweden, why are we thinking like our government is the only ones overplaying this, or is our mainstream media overplaying this? Those are the confusing elements. But De'Aaron, you talked about it last week, with the new president-elect going to be in office in about 6 weeks, 5 weeks. What do you, I don't know if you had a chance to look at his plan, but what are you looking forward to in how we as a country now will be addressing COVID-19?
Even as a country, I think it's still going to be a difficult sell, only because we already have so much pushback and so much divisiveness that was installed from this current administration.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the biggest things that we suffer from in this country is American exceptionalism. And we think we're better than everybody else. We don't have to do everything else because we got freedom. We got the Constitution. We got all of this. I'm going to make this short and sweet. Because of all of that, because everybody thinks that this country is going to come back and be unified and stuff in the next couple of months. Nah, we got a long way to go. We got an extremely long way to go. And even though what Biden will say is probably the best course of action, he said 100 days, wear a mask for 100 days. That's cool. Yeah. I'm down with that. How many people will actually do it though? That's the question.
Yeah.
How many governors will actually enforce it? Not,
right.
I can see blue states doing it. I can't see red states doing it. Social distancing, all that stuff that we're doing, that we see that works.
I heard
probably
a
going
guy.
to do it.
Yeah,
But
I heard a guy on talk radio today. It was so funny. He introduced himself. I listen to like national radio, and he said, "What? I'm just gonna make a name up. I'm John from Florida. You know, everything's good down here. Everything's open. I'm breathing on people. We're all good." And it's that kind of cavalier nature that's like, wow, and you know, it makes it like worrisome. Like we won't be able to get over this until people are willing to move this far off their comfort. And I think one of the greatest examples, people bring it up in the chat. I want the same energy for these people that are getting their rights violated by a restaurant asking them to wear a mask. I want to travel somewhere in the country with them. And if they take off their shoes, I'm going to call them a hypocrite. Point blank, period. I'm going to call them out right now. Like, you better not have TSA running your life. Don't be a sheep for TSA. Don't be a sheep for the airlines and taking your shoes and your belt off. You better tell them you're not taking shit off and you're going to go to the little machine where you put your hands up, if anything. But you're not going to check me. That's how I feel. My conservative friends that don't want to wear masks and don't want a vaccine and don't want things closed, like, okay, then don't follow anything. Don't follow the speed limit. Like, you're not a sheep. Like, we're all sheep. Bye bye, I guess, you know. But all right, I'm on transition this because now I got a good stuff. So everybody out there, we kind of concluded last week's kind of talk, wrapping up COVID. Now we're talking about the good stuff. There was a comment in our group chat that it kind of made my ears perk up because I understand it, but I think it is short-sighted and straight to the point. A lot of Democrats and people are saying, oh my God, the election is over. Yesterday, all 50 states, I'm going to throw it out there to the people. All 50 states have certified their elections and their election results. On Monday, your representatives will vote in the Electoral College, and based on, I have not found a state yet, based on every state law and guideline, they must vote in the way of the people. I'm going to help people. Texas can bitch all they want about Michigan. Those Texas people are already voting for Donald Trump. That's kind of a wash. The Michigan representatives are going to have to take those 16 electoral votes and vote for Joe Biden. Georgia, their 16 votes, I believe in 16. Arizona, those 11 votes or 10 votes, whatever it is, those are all going to go towards Joe Biden. Now, my question is, my conservative friends will say, all we heard about was Russian collusion and shit like that after the 2016 election. So my blue friends, my liberal friends, all of us sheep, how come we heard Democrats talk about collusion in Russia, and now all of a sudden those people are telling Republicans and conservatives to get over it and let's move forward? Where's the hypocrisy from the Democratic Party? Do you all see hypocrisy, or why don't you see it as hypocritical?
I
I
don't
see
see it.
hypocrisy.
You say that? Oh man, what'd you say? Say it loud.
I see hypocrisy at
There we
its
go.
finest. Okay, and here's why. When Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by 2.3 million votes, but lost the electoral vote by over 70 votes because of how our electoral college is designed, based on representation, based on population and key jurisdictions and gerrymandering and all that good stuff. I ain't gonna give you all political science government lesson tonight, but I'm gonna just kind of throw it all in there to make it make sense.
Hey, can I say something? Hey,
Yeah,
for my conservative friends, 2018, you kind of lost that gerrymandering thing too.
Yeah,
Should have
yeah,
showed your
I'll
ass.
touch
Majorly.
on that. I'll touch
Majorly.
on that.
2018 was a bad year for a conservative in Michigan.
Majorly.
Yes, yes,
But now they're political science majors. But
Yes.
whatever.
yes. So in 2016, when we saw, and this typically does not happen, typically the electoral vote matches the popular vote. This has only happened 5 times in our U.S. history since 1789, and 2 of those times have happened within the last 20 years, which is kind of problematic. But anyways, I won't go on that part. But we did not see Hillary raising this type of hell. We did not see her go on a lawsuit campaign to challenge every state that did not go in her favor, even though a lot of the swing states turned red, and she marginally lost in Michigan. I'm talking by 10,000 votes. That was 0.03%, less than 1%. That's grounds to challenge a recount over and over again because that percentage was so narrow. We did not see her refuse to concede. She conceded gracefully and said, this is what it is. We're going to have to give him a chance and turn it over to him and let him do what he do. And then she didn't even cause a ruckus. She kind of remained low key until 2018 for a minute and then popped back out now in 2020 for Biden. But you did not see her divide the country. You did not see her raise hell and challenge the results. And you did not see her say vehemently that there is fraud everywhere. They bringing in trucks of ballots. They throwing in stuff. They changing dates. You did not see her get a team of attorneys to try to file these 30, 40, 50 plus lawsuits that keep getting thrown out left and right in the state Supreme Courts. You didn't see none of that. She followed suit of our U.S. history and conceded and accepted her L, even though she won the popular vote. Now that we are in 2020, President Trump has lost by 7 million votes.
And still counting.
Almost
historically.
No,
historically.
the count's over, but it's
but
almost
they
5
broke,
points.
But they both broke history, though. I want to note that. They both broke history because Americans turned out to vote via absentee because it was more convenient. So we've had the largest voter history in decades. So Trump actually broke the record for being the highest loser. I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but he did. So he wants to be great in everything. You're great in that aspect. But we didn't see that. So when that was happening in 2016 and all the conservatives was like, oh, take your L, get used to it, stop crying, stop being a crybaby, stop being unpatriotic, you're un-American, accept what Americans have said they have spoken. So we accepted it, but we knew that in 2018 we was going to have to try to turn out to change the tide because we knew what the outcome was going to be. At least I did for sure. Like I can show y'all my 2016 post where I basically prophesized what was going to happen during his tenure in office, and it's literally happened 10 times over. Okay, like we are divided like it's 1960. We've regressed as a nation. We have not progressed. The only thing you can say was progressive was economically speaking. And what would you expect from a businessman? I expect him to put a lot of focus on economics, but he also inherited a great economic climate. He came into a positive trending economic society within our country. We were trending upward anyway. So that's what I would expect. But the hypocrisy is so real that it's almost hilarious. Saturday Night Live is capitalizing off of this for 4 years because that's how comedic and yet sad it is. So yeah, that's Professor D. Stan.
That's cool. That's cool.
Now, I'm going to add something into kind of your statement.
Russian collusion and all that.
Oh, Johnny's talking.
I was just saying, like, one thing you have to also look at, though, the Russian collusion was investigated. They did trials, they did hearings. They were like, hey, we don't see it. So when they bring up all the vote stuff, it was investigated. And the courts were like, we don't see it. So I think a lot of the difference there is that, you can talk about the Russian collusion, but at least like they tried to present evidence. Whereas now you have, so-and-so said they cheated. So that's all we're going to run with. Because this guy right here said that they cheated, but he won't go under oath to say that. Right. But he's just saying, or a that says he's taking a stand by just saying that there was cheating, but there's no evidence to back it up. And I think that's where it's kind of silly now. And again, obviously my viewers understand that I did vote for Donald Trump. Right. So this is not sour grapes. So, for the people that I've seen just want to openly state they cheated. I'm like, all right, well, where is your evidence to back that up?
How?
Stay tuned. That's what we
get. But
and it's like, give us actual evidence we can investigate. Go ahead.
But I will say this: in the court of law, firsthand witness accounts are valued. I mean, that is a key piece of evidence: is firsthand witness accounts. For conservatives, they're hearing firsthand witness accounts.
And hearsay is invalid.
But
Well,
the problem,
the thing is about that. Sorry, Byron.
Yep,
The thing
I'm
about
with
this, you notice that these hearings are not happening under oath. None.
yeah,
And for me, that's a big red flag. Because if you're that confident that what you're saying is true, you should be under oath.
right.
Because if you don't say this under oath, that's penalty for
Perjury.
fines or jail time.
But that's the
So
nature.
that's a big red flag.
I
for
don't
me.
have to prove what I'm saying. All I have to do is put it out there.
Right.
I put it out there, it spreads like a disease and
Right.
infects people and becomes a machine of its own, and it
Right.
lives and breathes on its own. That's what people are doing.
Right.
I will just throw out anything to hopefully see if it sticks to the wall. And that's where the big issue is. Like you talk about the Russian collusion, like if you actually listen to what they were saying was happening, like I'm on my computer, I'm on Facebook, and the Russians have infiltrated advertising on my computer saying, hey, you should vote for Donald Trump.
Bingo. Oh man, Johnny, you taking my glory, man. Hey man, you're supposed to be watching us, just doing the technical. That was
sorry.
my glory point, man.
I felt like I wanted to participate, so let me step back. Go ahead.
No.
No, I mean, but you're good though. I mean,
Hey,
you made a
Johnny,
great point.
that is spot on. I think where this conversation does change, and this is why I really want somebody. I don't care if you. And it's funny because I call them conservative. Then everybody explains to me how they're not Republican or conservative. It blows my mind. I say I'm Democrat all day, every day. But there's a big difference between the allegations about Venezuela and Dominion machines and Chinese communism infiltrating this election. There's a big difference between that rhetoric and what the objections about Russian collusion were. Russian collusion was that Russians, in order to influence people's voting, not change, not make it fraudulent, every vote was what it was in 2016. But the Russians influence through social media and things of that nature our election process and our information process, meaning things that you are not allowed to do in government when you are running for office. Those things were happening, and I'm being honest, not saying that Donald Trump green lighted it. Donald Trump just benefited from the collusion from Russia. If conservatives wanted to make the same argument that there was some form of collusion, that's what needs to come out. And that's what the investigation that happened about Russia unfolded, is that there was influence that came from a foreign country. Did that influence change election results? No. Did that influence? The whole focus was, did the president, Donald Trump, know about these potential influences and continue to benefit from them? These stories about trucks going or bringing in ballots, people throwing out ballots, the poll books are wrong, there are 300,000 votes wrong, and things like that. There are still people that say the American people need to know the truth. How can we as a society help people with getting the truth when it just doesn't match consistency? So I'm just adding to our conversations.
But I want to throw something in about the investigation. His own investigator, who he fired, said this was the safest election in years. Like, because of everything that happened in 2016, they start implementing new features to protect the election. So they're saying, and it's at different levels, this is being said, this has actually been the safest election we've had in years. So what you're saying has low merit to none, basically.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to add one more thing as well, because all this is being done because somebody, we all know who, is scared to stay in New York. And he is terrified that the New York State Attorney General, who is Tish James, she was elected in the 2018 midterms, immediately came in and shut down the Trump Foundation. if people remember that.
Mm-hmm.
I always say his big mistake, he never fought it.
The witch hunt. Witch hunt.
Right, he never fought it. He allowed it to happen. So that is as good as a guilty plea as you would get from him. That said, the investigation has not stopped, and rumors has that she will unseal those indictments sometime after he leaves office. A lot of people are saying that it could happen the day he leaves office for him not to be able to skip the country. So what we're seeing right now from him, all that rhetoric, all that stuff, from people who's helping him and stuff, we can say all we want, but I truly feel he's terrified of what's about to happen in the state of New York, and that's why you're hearing everything that you just mentioned, Bird.
But let's go back to kind of the election.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not that smart. I'm just a math guy, so I am really finite in my thinking. And we talked about this when we talked about kind of the timeline to conservative vitriol towards Gretchen Whitmer.
Mm-hmm.
About May, all of a sudden, mail-in ballots, absentee voting, and all of these things became a hot button topic where he started planting the seeds of fraud into the American mind.
He started it in July, in June, July. He started planting it.
Right. For me, but it was happening kind of before then when he attacked Benson in Michigan early. And but the thing for me that I'm not saying is, I will say this, I have a biased eye and ear towards something like that because of my opinion of Donald Trump as he could do the job of president. But when he started planting these seeds about mail-in ballots and fraud and everything, all of a sudden everybody knew someone that got 3 ballots sent to them. They got 5 applications sent to them, and as did they. And I went down some factors like, yeah, you may receive an application for a ballot at your house that's not your name because that person didn't take their name off of being a registered voter in this location. Like, it was their legal address. But people were worried, if you send out 5 ballots, then what stops a Democrat from voting 5 times for Biden? Where I joked, and I tell people, you all remember this in the chat, I would be the perfect person to send the extra ballots to. Like, I mean, other than I don't want to go to jail, I would be the person that would benefit from this. How come it seems like only conservatives receive these extra ballots? Wouldn't that be evidence that maybe they were trying to swing the election towards conservatives rather than Democrats and liberals?
Are you trying to go into conspiracy theory right now?
Well, I'm just trying to find some sense about how this whole thing about fraud grew and blossomed and is now to the point where people don't trust. I mean, you all saw the Michigan subcommittee on elections. You have Rudy Giuliani and his witnesses coming up there and questioning Republicans, Democrats. They're questioning full government. I mean, this is crazy. So what's kind of your opinion on the whole fraud discussion from its inception to now?
Like I was saying before, like if I'm in a situation where I'm potentially going to lose something that I'm fighting for, what are my options? Some people like to take the high road. Some people like to accept it. And to your statements earlier, Doc, some people don't even walk out to their crowd of supporters after they lose. Not very graceful. But again, my option is to plant the seed of doubt. If I can plant the seed of doubt, whether it's founded or not, that is enough to create the machine to fight for me on the pretext of an incorrect statement. I can just say, well, hey, if I lose, then clearly I was cheated. Or if I lose, there was cheating. That's the only way that it would make sense. I've thrown that out there. All I have to do is throw it out there. I don't need a lick of evidence. We're going to do absentee ballots. Well, you can't do that because it's going to be fraud. Well, is it fraud or is it the fact that most people that are going to do that aren't going to vote for you? So, we're just playing basically sociopath tactics here. You know what I'm saying? It's like I'm in a losing
Mhm.
fight, so I'm going to start doing whatever I can to try to get a foothold here, so my loss isn't as bad as it should be. So you know, you take Giuliani, you take these witnesses and all of those things, and again, it's just like you're saying this stuff happened. You're not providing any evidence, and we're in a day and age of technology where you can get evidence of anything you want all the time. Everything is a matter of
Right.
record. Everything has a camera roll going 24/7 on it. Everything has audio. So if these things are happening, there is a record of it. But the true thing about the election, though, that really kills a lot of the debate from the get go is that there is no way you can legitimately justify an action to unseat someone or put someone in as president that's going to work unilaterally, because the whole nature of elections is that you have people voicing an opinion. So you're basically trying to state that one side has unilaterally felt that they're going to make something happen regardless of what people want or not. So that means you have a group of people, let's just say it's 50%. 50% of the people want something to go something one way and you don't want it to. So you're telling me that not only the entire 50% on your side, but also a percentage of those people who want to vote the other way are cheating in your favor. Because that's what it would take. It would literally take more than half of the country to cheat in your favor, which means if they're cheating in your favor, they're voting that way, so it's not cheating. So it's almost like a paradox. And that's the thing that puzzles me the most about the argument on cheating, is that for it to actually work, the majority of people would have to be in on it. So if they're in on it, why are we cheating?
And it has to be excessive for it to be a 7 million gap. That's the one of the largest gaps historically. Like that's some excessive, like savvy cheating that I've never seen or heard of. I mean, come on now.
Or I'm sorry, Stacy, I don't want to question your numbers. I think you're even off. And when I'm saying off, because it last I checked, it was almost 8 million, or it was right over 8 million.
Oh, it may be, because the last time I checked, it was he had like over 81 million, and
Yeah.
President Trump had over a little over 74 or something like that.
And, but then it's almost 5 points. So like to Johnny's point, like this is a 5% swing, just even the popular vote that you would have to look for. With when you looked at Hillary Clinton, she won the popular vote
by 2.3 million. It was 2.3 million.
which winds up being somewhere small around 1%. Or that's for most. That is
that's
50 point. Yeah, that's 50.5 to 49.5.
Right now we're looking at 52 to 47.
This is, I mean, that's landslide. Now my other thing is, this is how the exit polls looked. That's my other confusion. It's not like Donald Trump had exit polls indicating that he was doing well. The exit polls have actually turned out to be exactly what they were. Donald Trump did better with African-American males in 2020 than he did in 2019. That happened still. Donald Trump did better percentage-wise with the Hispanic community. That happened.
Right.
Exit polls said that was going to happen. Now, when we say did better, we are literally talking about going from
just the increase,
8% to 9%. We're talking about going from 9.5 to 11.
Right.
Which, I mean, those are hundreds of thousands of votes. So it's not that that's minimal. But then we're going into looking at this election where I've heard one thing come from the president. I'm just going to kind of switch our focus to his rhetoric and have us kind of question that, where he said, conservatives follow what he says. He questions, Joe Biden really got more votes than Barack Obama?
He did. He broke.
He did.
That's what I'm saying. They
way more votes. But
That's what I'm
conversely,
saying.
Donald Trump got more votes than Barack Obama.
Yes, they broke.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. It was a historical election across the board. Like, we had more Americans voting because it was actually more convenient to do an absentee ballot. It's more
Mhm.
convenient to not have to try to get to a poll location, try to get off work, try to rush through your ballot in that poll, where you can actually take your time, do your research, watch the debates, whatever you want to do, and do your absentee ballot. It was more beneficial and encouraging for people to vote. And then you had activists who were getting voters registered to activate their voice a lot
Mhm.
this year. Stacey Abrams activated 800,000 voters in Georgia. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? That was a key agent in changing it from red to blue. It hasn't been blue since Bill Clinton.
26 years ago.
Yeah. So things like that, even in Pennsylvania, that's Biden's home state where he was born. He broke records there. He even decreased conservative percentages in the suburbs. Like he decreased support for Trump. It was a
Mhm.
lot that happened.
Well, that's why I go back to the increases. The sliding scale has worked both ways. The sliding scale kind of manifested, but really the volume of people voting. And I'll even go back to this. Kind of a early on subject is I believe that there was an influence, not just in like the entertainment community, but there was an influence in athletics. Huge
Mhm.
influence.
Mhm.
I'm talking, you saw Vote being a primary advertisement coming from the NBA. You saw Vote being a primary advertisement coming from the NFL.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I would ask somebody, anybody with a true valued conservative point of view, I would love to ask this question is, did it seem like Vote really should have said vote for Biden? Like that's how it really seems is the NBA demographic, the NFL demographic that was targeted with all of the voting advertisement was to get the liberal vote, the Democratic vote, the minority vote to the polls, which was going to always heavily favor Democrats.
Mhm.
And the convenience where NBA teams are using their arenas to become polling.
Polling site locations, yeah,
Right.
for early
That's
voting.
huge.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to Adler Elementary to vote. You could go to Little Caesars Arena
And
and
it's
socially
easier to
distance.
socially distance too in those arenas because it's large space.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So, so now the next transition, because my conservative friends still hold a lot of hope, even though yesterday, December the 9th,
Nice.
all 50 states have certified their election
Right.
results.
Right.
It's not projected. This is not the AP calling the election anymore. This is officially every state's vote is done. A winner has been officially announced.
Right.
But right now you have, and it was initiated in Texas, you have the state of Texas suing through the Supreme Court states such as Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Arizona, if I'm correct. What's our talking point about that? Where do we think that's going? I'm leaning heavy on the professor here. Where are these things going? Because if the Supreme Court makes the decision, Justice Kavanaugh, I mean, it seems like the president, he has already nominated 2 of the justices on the Supreme Court. So if things go to the Supreme Court, you would think that it may lean in the president's favor. Is there still a way for those 4 states to have their electoral votes washed out? Because I think that's what was happening is they want to just say that those elections were phony, so take away all of those electoral votes, period.
So we talking taking away 63 electoral votes, all right?
Yep.
Which is highly problematic. But let me just point out that President Trump has actually appointed 3 justices to the Supreme Court in 4 years, which is unheard of for a president, especially in 4 years. But he intentionally did this because he wanted to have the Supreme Court highly conservative to swing in his favor on core issues, especially if this outcome happened, because he was nervous that it may happen. So what he's hoping the Supreme Court would do is be unethical and violate the rights of 63 electoral votes, which represents millions and millions and 10 millions of populations of voting. That in itself is super unethical, immoral, and will basically obliterate our democracy. We will have all hell break out loose if that happened. Because I don't know if you guys saw when in Wayne County, when they were certifying the votes and they were trying to refuse to certify Detroit, and they were trying to refuse, and there was a standstill between the two Republicans and the two Democratic canvassers, and they were on a Zoom call. You had Detroiters and Wayne County residents cussing them out. I'm talking cursing them, condemning them, and letting them know how unethical and how there will be justice if they try to do this, that we're not going to take this laying down. We're not going to stand for this. Right. The Supreme Court justice has taken oath to uphold the Constitution and to uphold the law. That is completely unethical and illegal to violate everyone's right to vote. In several ways. You cannot implement voter suppression illegally and try to take away 63 electoral votes.
Yeah.
That's unheard of. That's unphantom.
Can I help people? I know I joke about being a big dumb jock. I know I say it all the time. People get mad at me because then they think I'm acting smarter than everybody. But it is simple math. 306 to 232.
Right.
If you subtract 63 from 306, because it's not like you could just overturn it and say, hey, he should have those votes. He doesn't have the votes. Like the election is certified. So unless you have a redo of the election, which now I'll digress to the doctor, you will not possibly have that because there's no process, procedure, or protocol to redo an election.
No, we only have protocol for recounts, not redo of elections. We have special elections, which are under special circumstances that this definitely doesn't count for. And we have recount protocol that varies by jurisdiction across the country.
So 306 minus 63, that is going to, I'm going to help people, still leave Joe Biden with more electoral votes. So what is the purpose of Texas and other states joining this lawsuit? It still would not change the election results, unless maybe I'm missing something.
It's going to throw it. It's going to throw it to the House of Representatives. This is what they're thinking. They're going to throw it to the House of Representatives, and each state gets one vote for president. And from last count, it's 26-24 conservative. And they believe if they get that to happen, they get
the Senate.
Keep down. What are you saying?
To the Senate or the House?
The House.
Okay.
The House is democratically led. Just want to know.
Right.
So again, how does
because
this?
Each state only has one vote. Not all the representatives.
I got you.
Okay. Each state has one vote, and it's 26-24. Conservatives compared to liberal states, and that's how they believe that they're going to keep Donald Trump, in office. Now, let me add this to.
But now I'm going to roll this out there though. When you say conservative versus liberal states, that is not referring to how they voted right now.
Right, it's referring to government, to the governors, to the senators.
So. You think Georgia right now, where everybody is being called a rhino Republican in name only, they're going to vote for Donald Trump? Arizona,
they are. I mean, I'll say this: Donald Trump has such influence that he bullies people into doing things that they don't want to do.
It's clear that he's a bully because he's unchecked. He's very unchecked.
I mean, again, you're just throwing stuff at the wall.
But my question is, when we're looking at a democracy, and people question the fact that Facebook will filter ridiculous posts. People question that Twitter will tag things as facts or fiction, and they think that that's an attack on the Constitution and First Amendment. Aren't all of these things we're seeing actual direct attacks on democracy, not
Yep.
abstract independent company decisions, but these are actual attacks on democracy if they actually happen, or even the belief of trying to get them to happen are attacks on democracy. Isn't this,
Yeah,
and
it
Johnny, we talk about the Second
is what
Amendment,
they want.
isn't
That's
this an
really
attack on the 10th Amendment?
this is what it boils down to. I don't care what happens. I don't care how illegal it is, as long as the outcome I want plays out. That's where we are as a country right now. People are willing to
Mhm.
terrible things and allow terrible things to happen if they think they're getting their way. And that's where you're finding a shift in society as far as your friends, family, coworkers, people that you felt you knew, people you felt you had a bond with. You were now seeing that a lot of times their own personal desires are superseding those previous arrangements. And it really boils down to the nature of, I don't care how my hamburger is made as long as it tastes good. And that's really what you're seeing in a lot of society today. We had a president who coddled that belief structure. Hey, let's do what we want to do because it makes us feel good. It doesn't matter if it's a good thing or not. We're just going to do it because we like it. And people embrace that because it's like, hey,
Mhm.
you know, I had to sit through all these years of this president that I don't like, and I can't say that I don't like him because of his skin color because that's not cool. So I will say I don't like him for all these other things. But it boils down to, we transitioned from that to where people had to sit, stew, be mad, even though if they really looked at the situations objectively, there wasn't much to be mad about, but you didn't like it. You just didn't like it. Now we have the antithesis to that. Okay, I'm on board. We're back to
Mhm.
status quo. Not only status quo, we're going 10 feet past it because this dude is just the poster child of all of the negative things that I breed inside of me. And I get to express that now because it's what's standard. So I can be proud
Norm.
in
It's
my
been normalized.
my in my actions where normally I would have to suppress those things. So a lot of people aren't obviously going to just relinquish that. You know, even if it wasn't real, even if they knew it was a figment of their imagination, because at the end of the day, it does not matter because he only could have had 8 years. It does not matter. So it's like it's not
Mhm.
like this was going to be a monarch, you know, where he was just going to be the thing and we're just going to have to endure it. Like there was going to be a day where this would come to an end, but people obviously are going to scratch and claw and do whatever they can to hold on to that. And then you also take into account
Mhm.
that the people that are doing these things aren't always necessarily on the moral up and up. So of course they're going to do any tactic that they can to hold on to what foothold they feel they had in society now. If
Right.
I'm free to be obtuse. Let's just say that. If I'm free to be obtuse, and now you're saying, hey, well, we're going to have to rein that back in now and go kind of back to where we were, where you kind of had to keep that under the shelf. I don't want to. Why would I want to do that? So I can lie. I can put out seeds of doubt. I can do lawsuits and all of these things. I will do everything that I can to impede this process as long as I can, hoping that there is a shine of light that will occur that allows me to continue on the path that I've been on. Because that's one thing we can say about the United States. We don't like change. We don't. Change is always a difficult transition. It's rough. It's a fight. Sooner or later, wherever the overarching majority want it to go is where we go as a nation and people follow suit. It just takes time. And this is like nothing else. The only thing that's different here is that you have someone who is willing to propagate that doubt, willing to push that doubt as long as they can. This is just like a kid who got straight F's on their report card doing everything they can to stop their parents from seeing it. It's already out there. It's a matter of record. You know your parents are going to find out what you did, but you're just trying to push it as far as you can. Be it going to the mailbox, intercepting the letter, you know, jumping into a ditch, not speaking from experience, and going home and saying you got hit by a car, just hoping that that was more important than what your report card did.
Is this
So
something
this report card to be read, and once it's read, punishment, take your lumps, and you move on.
But one thing I want to highlight, and this is, I'm about to be really real, okay, is one of the unique things about President Trump is that he is openly a narcissistic sociopath, okay?
Right.
And what that means is that he's very self-absorbed and he focuses on winning only. He has to be the great at everything. That's why you hear him talking absolutes. If you guys notice, he says the greatest, never have, first, We're doing this. No one has ever. Okay, so and this is me going into some psychology lanes, but I'm being real though. Okay, when you look this up, you'll understand what I'm saying. When you have a person that is in a position that is not business oriented, it's supposed to be about social welfare and the well-being of the overall, the greater good, but they only process bottom lines and profits and winning, then this is what happens here. Okay, he's not the first president to only have a 4-year term. When George Bush Sr. only had a 4-year term and Clinton came and took it out from him, you didn't see this because he doesn't have those personality traits. He wasn't a narcissistic sociopath, and he had political experience. This is what happens when you say we want something better, we want something different. So we're going to put a businessman and a reality TV star in office to run what's supposed to be one of the most powerful nations in the world. We're going to do that and see what happens. And this is what happened, okay? Like, you have a man who does not understand. He's ruining the democracy. He's ruining his own legacy. If you wanted to have a great legacy, what you wouldn't do is what you're doing right now. And what you would have done is handle a pandemic better and not look at the economy and pick capitalism over humanity and over survival. That's one of the reasons why we're here, why we're where we're at today. And with him being that person unapologetically, and people supporting him because they feel like he's that way, so I can be that way, you have the strong divisive nation that we are facing today. But one thing I want to note is that if he continues on this crusade to try to reverse the election, you're going to stir up another civil war, because the liberals are not going to take that laying down. This is not 1861. That's not what we're doing.
But
Yeah,
I don't believe that. I mean, and again, he's attacked Georgia. I mean, he's attacked anybody that has not, it's not even defied him, but has not been in 100% agreement and support or did his bidding. Because even in Georgia,
it's about him.
In Georgia, they're like, hey, we have nothing that you're talking about. Like, we can do literally nothing. And now part of his advocacy right now, which isn't, this isn't bad from his end, at forward thinking of the Republican Party, he's really trying to push Georgia to at least in their runoff election stay
right, because he feels if he saves the Senate, he keeps his legacy. He keeps a level of control.
Right. But he's also kind of double-edged sorting this, where Republicans in Georgia are not liking how he is treating the party and his party leaders in Georgia, which whatever happens. I think that there are some great steps I've seen in the past month where there are outliers of Trump supporters, there are Republicans, there are Democrats. Like there's a, I do believe that the people still holding on are kind of showing it's all about Trump. It's not about being a conservative. It's not about party. It is strictly about his extremist point of views.
Right.
They believe in those and want those. The limited government is a conservative belief. The belief that government is corrupt, that is an outside extreme belief that only has evidence of it impacting minorities, not the people that are worried about it impacting. Like, if people really want to dig deep into it, there is no evidence of Tuskegee experiment happening to the majority stakeholder in this country.
Right.
There is no Jim Crow of this country. And for all my people that talk about there were Irish slaves coming over to this country in the beginning, no, that is what you see as the criminal justice system right now. Those are people that had to pay off debts, so their services were free to pay off debts.
Indentured servitude is different from chattel slavery.
It is not. You are torn from your country. You are torn from your culture. You are torn from your family. And we are trying to change everything about you. You're there. You know a Nigerian name when you see it. You know a Ghanaian name when you see it. You know a Kenyan name when you see it. There are no burdens in West Africa.
Right.
There are no Easleys in West Africa. There are no Deerings. There are no Johnsons in West Africa. And that's where we see these differences. So that's where I kind of, I talked to my barber today, and I said I have a decent life. I'm blessed, and I thank my Lord and Savior every day for the things I have. I really can't answer that there's a white guy in the world that will trade with me.
They won't even. I'll say this.
Even
I'll
the
say
poorest white guy would not trade with you most likely, because, and this is kind of going into history, white privilege will always beat out being black in America.
Right. Right.
Your privilege exists because it's born in you. It's not something you do. You're just born with it because of our system, our systemic system we have in our country that spirals from slavery. It's just the way it is.
Right.
But a buddy of mine made a great comment about white privilege, and he used a term that I thought was great that I wish I had thought of myself. And he talked about white privilege when people are defensive about hearing it from their element. They think it's a coupon. They think it is a gift card where they can utilize it at any way, shape, form, event in their life, and they can get something from it. And that's not what is talked about. But you have a president and a leader, elected official, that even during the Republican National Convention, all they kept emphasizing was how suburban life was under attack and you were going to lose everything.
No, say the quote, Vernon. I love saying what he said.
You are gonna, well, I got two, because I want to go back. In 2016, I had to think about this. He said that MS-13 was going to come and rape and kill your wives and daughters. MS-13, a prison gang, synonymous in the Southwest. They're not making it to North Dakota to take on you and your cattle. Like, I'm so confused.
True.
Like, they're not infiltrating Maine. They're not infiltrating Wyoming. They're not infiltrating Tennessee.
Right.
Indiana. I'm talking about whole scale fears of them coming into your household and harming you. And now that same rhetoric. I mean, he had two people, and Johnny, you're the Second Amendment guy. He had two people at the Republican National Convention talking about how unjust it was that protesters were walking by their houses and they shouldn't be able to come outside with their weapons to show them that they will be defending their homes. Those people were on at the Republican National Convention. At the Republican National Convention, he had a young man who received, and I will agree with it, negative media attention for his behavior in a situation that stemmed between him wearing a Make America Great Again hat and an indigenous elder. It turned into such a negative response. He is having young white males in fear of being able to express their political values and views. So what do you all say about those levels of fear? And I don't want to call it fear mongering. I don't want to call it propaganda, because, you know, you hear things like cancel culture over and over, but all of that combined with the lack of trust in the election process, how would you, like, it's evidence.
I mean, again,
and back in 2016, all I heard about was Russians.
We are talking about an election. We are looking at the social landscape. And a year ago, he can look at the social landscape and see, I'm probably not going to win here. What do we do? You know, it's too late to change. Right. It's too late to come out and say, hey, guys, I've had a change of heart. I see what I've been doing. let's make these changes and we'll get this rolling on the ball. No, we start planting the seed of doubt. Where is my doubt need to, reside from? It needs to reside in the actual vote itself, because that's where I'm losing. So I mean, you talk about the tactics, and obviously we know that they're ridiculous, but at the end of the day, fear is a very strong motivator. Fear is the reason I voted for Donald Trump, because I had an inherent fear of the things that I heard Joe Biden say in relation to me. I didn't like it. So yes, it created fear, which pushed my decision in the way that it went. So fear is a very strong motivator. So when you say, as a middle class family, we're going to make it so these less fortunate people can move to your area, ergo your area is going to become less fortunate, not going to get better. It's going to get worse. So that's fear. If I go to the city of Detroit, drive through the east side on a residential street and I have people parked in front of me having a conversation in the street, that upsets me. It's stupid. I don't understand why they do that, but they do that there. So as a middle class suburbanite, you tell me these people are about to move to my neighborhood. I don't want to hear that, because I don't want people sitting in the middle of my street having conversations. We're not even talking about murder, burglary, and things of that nature. It's just the inherent lack of respect that people assume.
I don't want you loitering.
Hey, that's what I'm saying. Get off my lawn. So it's like with that situation with that couple, technically that was a gated community, but the gate wasn't closed. But under the pretext of it being a gated community, their belief is that those people should not have been there. Thus, they had a right to defend themselves regardless of what they were doing. That was their ploy. Granted, it was a bad take and it was a bad decision, and in a court of law, it really wouldn't hold up. So the problem you have there is you take, again, these societal people that are exalting the actions that they want to propagate. Hey, these people pulled guns out on these people, walk down their street. I want to be able to do that. Yeah, I'm going to support it. Is it right? Don't care. That's something I want to be able to do. So you are fighting a social construct now. It is not about right and wrong. It is literally just about morals here, where we're taking a stance of people that want to try to continue to push morality against people who are pushing complacency. I would rather do the things I want that make me feel good, regardless of whether they're morally right or wrong, because laws change. Slavery was legal. Wasn't morally right. It was legally right. So we're not even talking about the basis of laws. We're just talking about actual decency. And that goes all the way back to the mask. Wearing a mask is a decent thing to do to try to protect your fellow man. But we are in a situation now where people are like, I would rather my fellow man die than be inconvenienced.
But who planted that seed?
That is the seed of the.
I would say actually half what
I feel like it was multiple seeds.
However,
it became politicized.
Right. Who is pushing that narrative as well, and that's what's dangerous, because it gets to a point where people are starting to hold dear more their own personal comfort than the overall viability of our people. And it's sad because this is not just, I'm walking by a guy sitting on the ground with a sign that says, give me $1. We're getting to a point where now it's like, I'm going to step on this person to walk past him to get where I need to be. And that's where we cross that morality line, and it's sad. But, when you get to your question, when we talk about like the fraud and things of that nature, it's literally drawing at straws. And we all know that. And as like I said, I didn't vote for Joe Biden, but I can still recognize that. And I'm personally not willing to fall in line and, subscribe to that type of fight. Like, I did what we were supposed to do as Americans. I expressed my vote. I expressed my voice. I have reasons for why I did it, regardless of what people want to think about me as a person for my decision. But I did it because that's supposed to be America. It didn't play out in my favor. And as a person who literally didn't have it play out in their favor, believe me, if there was something I could see that was real, that was tangible, that told me that you three stole this election from me, I would fight. I would 100% fight, because that would be a problem. But I don't see it. And it's not that I'm not looking for it. It's just not there. Give me something. Give me something as an objective individual to give me that reasoning. So you can throw it, unfortunately, even for his own, because I'm not a supporter. And that's what a lot of people couldn't comprehend when we had that episode. Me voting for him is not supporting him. It's literally not supporting the person I don't want to win. I have no choice here. You know,
Right.
but again, his
Right.
supporters, they're more of that Velcro. So he can throw it out there and it sticks to that Velcro. I am not a supporter. So when you talk about the numbers, here is a vote that you have for Trump, but not a person that supports Trump. So I am not someone that's going to help you in your fight if it's not justified. So you're losing numbers. So if you really wanted to do a recount, you know, you're potentially losing votes. So that's where you get this, the puzzling nature of it to me is like the fight you're fighting is actually making it worse. It's not making it better. You're not gaining any foothold here. Since day one of all of this fighting, he's lost by a larger margin. You know, and it's going
Right,
got
right,
bigger
right.
and bigger and bigger. So it's like, you know, like Stacey said, his legacy, like he is a sociopath, yes. He's a narcissist, yes, but he's a narcissist that lives in the now. He's not concerned about 10 years from now. And this is certainly a guy who does not care what anyone would say about him after he's gone. You know, he's worried about today. So unfortunately, he's willing to embarrass himself to the furthest extent he can if it in some way can get him the result he wants. This is a guy who would literally, like, if Biden got hit by a truck tomorrow, treat it as victory. You know, so it's like one less person that was fighting me. And it's like, that is where you have to, you can't look at this argument from a logical perspective because it's not rooted in logic.
Right.
It's rooted in desire. It's pure desire.
Right.
This is what people want, and they are willing to take anything they can. My dog said that Joe Biden cheated, so there we are. Your dog can speak. Don't worry about it. He said that there was
Your dog
fraud.
must be
So it's
Scooby-Doo,
out there.
investigating
You know,
mysteries.
so you know that's the problem. It's like you're fighting a fight against a collection of people who are literally going to take anything they can. I looked up at the clouds, and the clouds looked like they were forming the words "Biden cheated." There it is. You know, so that's where it just sucks because it's like, man, you know, you talk about the collusion, the Russians, the emails, and all that stuff. These are all tangible things. The arguments we're getting today about this rampant cheating, this rampant fraud, has literally no evidence. None. We've seen the videos that the people in our chat have posted. You know, the things that are supposed to smoking gun. XYZ person ruined this other person's career with this statement. You can't just make open statements. You can't just say anything under the pretext of the First Amendment, because I have the First Amendment to tell you that you're wrong, and I can provide the information that shows you that you're wrong. So it isn't a matter of opinion. You can't have the opinion that people cheated. You need to have proof. You need to have documentation. You know, I have a video of this pallet pulling up. What's on the pallet? I don't know, but it must be fraud. Well, that doesn't make sense. You gotta have evidence. You gotta have something. You can't just say
Guy
these.
with a bag.
Yeah, so that's the problem. You know, like you talk about, you know, the influence when they were counting the votes, going down there, you know, chanting and arguing, and it's like, well, if things get miscounted now, could it be because you're outside causing a distraction? You know, so it's like again, it's like you gotta have something, and like I said, I would be the first dude on top of a mountain shouting it like, hey, here's proof. This is messed up. This is a problem.
All right.
We don't have that. So to not have that, but yet have so many people posting all of these things, you know, you look at, like, you post something. So I see the article. It's a news article, so it must be true, right? Where's the news article coming from? You look down at the bottom of the page, conservative, right-wing, right extreme, right news. I'm like, well, can I believe that I'm hearing when I know that it's coming from a source that is 100% biased in one direction? No. So it's like, all right, well, why can't I find an article relating to this from anyone else that wouldn't just seem to have an ulterior motive? And that's where you have the problem. And it's like, you know, you talk about the media, you know, they're influencing us. They fight us and all this stuff, and they push us in the direction they want us to go in. Okay, if that's the case, then how is it that I can sit and watch a Donald Trump news conference when everything he's saying is 100% biased to what he wants? You put that out there. It's on every news channel. It's there. It's there for everyone to see and absorb and take in. Now we're in a situation where that same guy wants to say, well, all this stuff was happening and it's fraudulent. How can you not have any actual tangible evidence? You are the president of the United States. You have this collection of judges that you've appointed. You have these people. you have the machine, you have all of these things at your disposal, and you're telling me you can't provide one piece of tangible evidence to show that what you're saying is true. That is where it looks bad. Give me the person, pay somebody off to say, yes, I'll go under oath. I have a ballot right here in my back pocket. Give me something. If you're going to do it, do it. That's all I'm saying. Is like, that's what just makes it so silly when I sit here and I see my peers latching on to these things because they want them to be true. And it gets to the point where it's like, man, I feel bad asking them for evidence because it's such a defeatist scenario. And it's like, how can it be that my side of the debate is literally just asking for evidence? That's all I have to do. I don't have to debate you. I'm literally asking you to provide proof. That's all I'm asking. And the answer always is, well, we don't need proof. What do you mean you don't need?
In the court of law, you do.
Or we're waiting to
fight
Supreme
this fight.
Court.
You want to fight this fight?
Supreme Court.
No, but you don't need it. You just need an admission that the possibility of what you're saying could happen could happen. You can't have that debate on the merit of it is possible that it could have happened. That doesn't mean that it happened. So me admitting to you that yes, it is possible that in the realm of reality that people can try to cheat, that does not mean that it actually happened. Furthermore, it does not mean that it happened to a degree that could change the election.
Right.
So that's the problem. It's like, so it gets to a point where why even fight? Because if you don't have evidence, if you don't have proof, you cannot win.
Right.
Well, what people are saying is kind of going back to, there was a formal investigation into Russian collusion into the 2016 election. What they're asking for is, why can't we have a formal investigation into the election results from?
Because you need evidence.
You
need evidence to have an actual investigation.
Well, I'm questioning it, Johnny.
And the thing is,
enough people
and he fired the guy because the guy told him
Right.
it was the most protected, safest election. He got mad because he didn't say what he wanted him to say, and he fired him.
Same thing with Bill Barr. Bill Barr said that it was a safe election. There was nothing there. So
There
it's
has
like if all his own people.
It's like
you talking about the Attorney General for the
Yeah, the
United
AG
States
Bill
of
Barr.
America,
It's all his own people saying this.
the number one attorney in the country. He is the grand attorney of the country, saying, "Hey, this is a wrap." What? But no, on One American Network told me, One American Network, which has the production quality. I will say this: I'm fine with Fox News. I just know that their opinion sections and some of their hosts want to get pats on the back from the president.
You mean their TV hours between 8 o'clock and 11 o'clock? I get that.
But one American News, and I got a friend I dearly love. People, the production quality of One American News is that of a high school media program, and if you are getting your news from there, you are a joke. And I'm not. I'll just be absolute and saying it. There is no way that I get it. You don't like CNN. Liberals don't like Fox News. There is another station, MSNBC. Like, there are so many other stations that give you your local news, give you some form of normalcy. So don't just use the mainstream media, because as me and
like BBC, so that's about as impartial as it can get. They're not from here.
What I said, I say this all the time to Stacy. Media is short for mediums, which means that anything that is published is mainstream media. That means books. That means scholarly journals. Those are mainstream media. It just isn't on your Facebook feed with all your conservative friends. That's where the only difference is. And I think people have a real beef with their friends' opinions on social media, and they're considering it mainstream media. And it does go down to, it is a business still. I need you to click on this website so that we get these clicks and numbers. So the headline is going to be really sexy, but the content isn't really going to align with the headline. You gotta read more into.
I posted that article the other day. Like, they were saying how she was getting arrested and the felonies and all that, but it's not even about this election. but that doesn't say
Yeah.
that in the headline. You know, that's not the headline. It's just,
No.
Democrat fraud, but it's not even this election.
Oh,
So it's like, just read.
But what's funny is, but I'll even go with that, Johnny. It doesn't even start with Democrat. It just puts the picture of an African American woman,
Right.
so that you can let your implicit bias take over.
Yes.
To
yes.
say it is a Democrat-run election, it is conspiracy, and you look at it, it's in a majority Democrat city. So what would it have helped to skew an election in the midterm election in a city where your House representative was mayor of that city? Like, literally nothing would have changed in that election. That's why Jocelyn Benson came out to say that election, no voters were disenfranchised during these proceedings, and these proceedings are going forward. But that's what, like you said, Johnny, you want to create a story that isn't the story. You want to create these items that aren't the items. That's what's funny. But we've talked a lot about legacy, and kind of, I know it's getting late, and I want to make sure we get this in. We talked about it, and I'm not saying I'm not a fan of this human, but how far has Rudy Giuliani on December 10th, 2020, how far has he fallen since September 12th, 2000?
Under the Earth's realm.
I think he's at the center of the earth.
I mean, this
Goodwill.
I mean, you really
you go from being the mayor of America.
Hey man, this was a good question.
Well, no, I mean,
you go from the mayor of
Guy
America.
Ritchie did Snatch. Everybody loved Snatch, so they gave Guy Ritchie a pass every movie he did after Snatch, and none of them were as good. But we kept giving him a pass because he did. Giuliani has been living off goodwill of 9/11, which, let's be honest here, he did not do much of anything during the 9/11 issue.
Right.
He didn't. He was just a figurehead that was standing there. So, like, the goodwill he even had was fraudulent to begin with. So it's like, all you're seeing now is just history.
But that's gone.
And we're so far removed from 9/11 where it doesn't play off that.
But I'm gonna kind of push back from that on to you, Johnny, because it's something that I question Donald Trump about. It is actually my biggest gripe with Donald Trump. I think Rudy Giuliani did everything perfectly from his position of mayor of the city of New York during 9/11. He was compassionate and empathetic towards everyone. He never was divisive. He never went on any form of media, and he never blamed any religious background individual, any cultural background individual, any skin complected background individual. He united the city. He never blamed anybody except for those that he definitively knew were behind the attacks on America. He supported grieving families. He supported frontline first responders. He supported everybody and did everything that an elected official should do in times of tragedy. And that's where it makes me so disappointed, because when people have family members dying, to have, and you all saw it, I had posted it months ago, where 80% of Republican males thought that the casualties or the mortality rate in any loss of life during COVID-19 was acceptable. And I mean, these are polls that come out where it is just asinine, but you have a president that has never shown empathy. Even going back to the George Floyd thing, he came so close to just giving a real answer of like, hey, this is unacceptable. Now, part of it, he said the actions of that police officer were unacceptable. And something needs to be done to that officer. Now, he never says the system, but he turned completely around and used it as a weapon of frustration, where he said, they're burning down American cities. I'm a law and order president. I support police officers and all these other things. So going back to Rudy Giuliani, he did everything right in a response during a hostile environment and tragedy where honestly people just needed support and love. People just needed to know that it was something wrong that happened and we were going to bounce back. And I mean, and those are the things where I think his legacy has fallen so much. Like in 2020, you could become a meme and a GIF doing anything. Like everybody could do it. Michael Jordan is synonymous with crying Jordan right now. Like Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player to ever do it, is synonymous with a meme of whenever somebody loses something. Like, but Rudy Giuliani is now just synonymous with being almost, I mean, just unhinged. And all I heard for months was that Joe Biden has dementia. Joe Biden is off his rails. Like he doesn't have full capacity. Sleepy Joe. And you literally have the person representing you. My lawyer. I got a couple friends that are lawyers. For damn sure, if I ever get in trouble, my lawyer better be smarter than me.
That part.
My lawyer better be way smarter than me. And if this is the person representing you, this is the person speaking on your behalf, and even the non-hired, we all know the inside joke, the non-hired
Miss Sidney
Powell, that person represented you and is still representing you. But I just wanted to talk about Giuliani's legacy. Now I'm going to flip something different just because we're talking about the president. I tell this to youth that I work with. I've gone back and spoke at my university and talked to the football team, to seniors that are transitioning into their professional adult lives. And I always talk about social media, and I always say, look at your last 10 tweets. And I'm going to tell you something about yourself. Look at your last 10 Facebook posts. I always say, your last 10 things are going to tell me your value system and what you like, what you believe in, whatever. You know, I'm going to get your story from your last 10. 1 hour ago, Donald Trump tweeted tremendous support from all over the country. All we ask is courage and wisdom from those that will be making one of the most important decisions in our country's history. God bless you. I'm assuming that is a direct
for Monday for the Electoral College certification
for Monday.
Yes.
Now, with that being said, maybe I'm being extreme. He just is asking for elected officials to do two things. First, he's saying, do not go with the voice of the people.
Right.
He's telling them to go rogue.
Second,
it's unheard of.
Break the law of your state.
Exactly.
Without doing that. My question is, how can we have a leader, and I would ask this to any conservative, how can we have a leader that mentions law and order, courage and wisdom, asking you to do something uncourageous, unethical, and without any wisdom of law?
Goes back to what I was saying.
Some way, somehow they'll
just because he doesn't have wisdom of law. He doesn't.
I think we're all talking at once, so I think somebody just go at once and we go.
You go, D. You've been kind of quiet for a minute. You go.
All right. I'm just making short and simple. They'll make excuses for him. They'll make excuses why he's not breaking the law. They'll make excuses why he's doing this, why he's doing that. You gotta remember, the people around Donald Trump, they kiss his butt. And you see, quote unquote, people who used to be considered good, they're breaking all kinds of laws, doing all kinds of things for him. Can you say, or they always this bad? We don't know. But can you say Donald Trump is just a master manipulator? My answer is probably yes. He is a master manipulator, and he'll manipulate people to get what he wants.
Narcissistic, like I said.
Okay. Well, I think we've been going for an hour and 45. You know, I think we got some things out. Any closing comments about whether what we talked about, where we concluded last week's discussion on local government in Michigan and COVID-19, or, you know, if anybody wants to just give a closing comment on the electoral process and what we're going to be facing in on Monday.
Monday won't be the end, but it's gonna be that transitioning road to get to the end. And I feel that they're gonna fall in line. They're always gonna fall in line because you don't have a choice. Again, it's like, you can want a different outcome, but if you have nothing tangible to achieve it, at some point you're just gonna have to cut your losses. And it's an ebb and flow. It's like we can all rag on them, the conservatives and things of that nature, but the same thing was happening back in 2016. Celebrities, oh, I'm moving out of the country, I'm leaving. They're all still here, and all the people that are saying it now, they'll still
Right.
be here. It's empty words, and that's just what it is what it is. So it's like, what I would say is try to not take this personally. You know, there are situations in life where people will say and do things that are not really indicative of their actual character. And we have to recognize that in those times, we can't judge people solely on those actions because, again, they're not really acting in their character. And, for whatever reason it may be, emotional, physical stress, financial stress, things of that nature can always elicit an action out of someone that may not be something they would normally do. So just take that to heart, with your personal connections and
Right.
relationships in life. We're in a weird time right now, but don't let these situations define people. It's like because a year from now, they're probably not going to be acting that way. And look at all the people that were 6 foot Trump flags and all that stuff. You don't see that anymore. You know, you don't have that energy out there anymore because now their guy isn't necessarily on top. So you start to go back into your, incognito. People are going back to where they can blend in with the rest of society because they can't put those things on their sleeve anymore. So that's just where we are. And it's like, you know what? Some people, unfortunately, said some really bad stuff. And that's the reason why we're here today because we were seeing things on social media that were just flat out just abrasive and just wrong, morally corrupt, socially corrupt. And you were just thinking to yourself, I work with this person every day. I do things with these people. I can't believe that they're saying the things that they're saying and I can't believe that they truly believe these things. Well, let me tell you, that is going to go away. We're going to get back to a normalcy when it comes to things of that nature, and hopefully, a lot of people can get past that and move on beyond that, even if they weren't willing to have a conversation about it. In addition to that, we got to understand like narcissism, sociopathic tendencies, it's all buzzwords and it sucks. But at the end of the day, you know, you are your own person. You are responsible for your actions. So you cannot take people like Donald Trump and use them as a shield to do bad things. And that's where I feel like as a society we failed the last 4 years. We allowed his position to afford us the ability to be bad people, just flat out, just bad people, say completely insensitive things and use him as a shield. Your shield is gone. Your shield no longer exists. So take that to heart. And you can not like me as a person. You can not like Floyd for who he was as a person. All of these things. But remember, you have to be responsible for the words that come out of your mouth. When you make statements,
Right.
it's you, regardless of the First Amendment, that doesn't matter. You posting a meme that's insensitive, that is your voice. Even if you didn't create the meme, you are sharing it, you are spreading it. That is a message that you are pushing. So you have to be responsible for your actions, what you say, because people have memories. We don't forget. We're not going to forget what went on the last 4 years. Hopefully, we can forgive, but we're never going to forget.
Right. Right.
All right. Uh, I'm gonna go. D. Final statements.
Um, I'm gonna take this from somebody who actually lived in a extreme. Well, I actually lived in Austin for 4 years. Very, very, very liberal. However, outside of Austin is a town called Round Rock, and right above Round Rock is a town called Williamson. Very, very conservative. literally, I was about maybe 5 minutes away from the Austin border, and yeah, it got contentious a lot with politics and stuff. Me being new down there, going down there, one of the few things I was able to get, listen to was news. And one of the things I found, I won't say weird, but I found is you have a whole bunch of radio stations dedicated to conservative news or conservative cause. And listening to it for a while, it just made me think about a whole bunch of things compared to coming from the north, hearing people saying that, oh, we have too many Mexicans or stuff like that. Oh, we gotta close our borders and stuff. And me, thinking from coming from the opposite side, quote unquote opposite side, going to school with a bunch of Chaldeans and a bunch of Muslims. If you lived in Southfield in the 80s and 90s, we had I say about 25% Chaldean population in our school system, and we got along with them well. I mean, they blended in with us. I mean, they had their own customs, but we didn't have a problem with them. I mean, we exchanged culture. We talked about our culture. They talked about their cultures, things like that. But down there, listening to people, it's like, oh, we have to go back to our roots, or we have to go back to our grassroots, this, that, and the other. And I say all I have to say this. What we saw in the past 4 years didn't start with just Donald Trump. It started a while back. Some people actually say it started when Nixon was taken out of office. It started with, the whole thing with Nixon being taken down, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm not going that far back, but I will say this. You have to understand that your friends have been bombarded, especially the ones who are still pro-Trump and will defend him even when he lies. Chances are they've been inundated with a whole bunch of propaganda, a whole bunch of right-wing stuff, a whole bunch of radio, TV, what have you. And what you're fighting against is not really them per se. You're fighting against an ideology. And what I found is you actually have to listen to them, and you actually have to, just explain it to them. Once it gets contentious, you start fighting, nobody's going to listen. But once you start actually, breaking down, saying, oh, this happened, or this is why this can't happen and stuff, you might get some breakthrough. Can't guarantee all it will have actually happen like that, but you will get some breakthrough. But I'm saying all I have to say this. We have to get back to be civil again. I don't know how long it's going to take. I'm not sure how long it's going, for us to get back to where it was. Probably, let's say, I can't even say it was civil during Obama, because you have a lot of people saying a whole bunch of stuff about Obama as well when he was in office. I can't even say it was for Bush 43.
September 12th,
that's a hard one to think. September 12th, 2001, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was when we were united patriotically as one.
Right. I definitely agree with that. And we had conversations, black, white, red, yellow, Muslim, Christian, atheist, rich, poor, whatever. We actually sat down as a country. No matter where you were at, you sat down with other people and you talked and they listened. Nobody screamed at each other. Nobody was saying, pointing finger, all that stuff. We have to work at this. We really, really have to work at getting this country healed. We have to work at this, about getting this country getting back in a place where we feel safe. Because honestly, there's a lot of us who don't feel safe right now, for various reasons. So it's a lot we have to do going into 2021, even past 2021. If you actually think that what we're about to enter into is just going to be all peaches and cream, all this stuff, no, we got a lot of work to do. And we have to address it as such. And that's all I have.
Good. All right. Stacy, final comments.
I'm a piggyback on that and just and hopefully people will reflect back at this moment when I say this, because of me analyzing what's been happening in my field, I can pretty much pinpoint how the climate's going to be. So when we make the transition, and it's not going to be peaceful, right. We already see that. So when we make the turbulent transition, Joe Biden is going to walk into such a mess, for lack of better words, that his whole 4 years, first term, is going to be spent trying to reunite the country, trying to bring some form of unity and some form of cooperation, trying to bring some sense of normalcy and trying to put some balance back into our democracy. So you're not going to have kumbaya moments like that. We're not going to be singing "We Shall Overcome." That's what we not going to be doing. Like, he's really literally going to be on damage control. Kind of like how Obama was his first 4 years trying to get some things done. It was like damage control. And then that even went worse when the midterms happened in 2010 and they lost the House and the Senate. So he had strong opposition. So he was kind of not as productive as he could have been. So looking at this, and we have to wait till after January 5th just to kind of see how that relationship is going to be between him and the Senate. Because right now in Georgia with the runoffs, and I just want to give a brief description of what's happening. You have 2 seats that are up in an entanglement right now, right? They either are going to stay 2 Republican, and that's going to make the Senate broken, very divided, or if they convert over to Democrat, then Democrats have a simple majority and it'll be more cooperation. We're going to see either or you may see a split. But either way, we have to see what's going to happen with that, because as a lot of us don't realize, the president's powers are limited. He needs cooperation from the legislative branch to get things done. So when we walk into January 20th, I do not want us as a nation to have these high expectations that we just going to flip the switch and go back to a sense of normalcy before 2016. That's what's not going to happen. So I just want to note that.
All right.
All right.
All right, all. Thank you all for joining. I'm just going to close with a couple of remarks, kind of advertisement. Keep the same energy that we had on November 3rd. And I don't care how you voted. Keep that same energy in your upcoming elections in the spring, your upcoming elections at the conclusion of summer, and your elections in the fall. There are going to be 3 elections in 2021. And I don't want to just throw mud in people's face, but you didn't have this energy about elections back in 2018. You didn't have this animosity towards Gretchen Whitmer. You didn't have this animosity towards no reason absentee voting. So it is our job as citizens to exercise our fundamental rights. 2 of them: voting, jury duty.
Right.
Main 2. Voting, jury duty. And it happens when you get that privilege of driving the car. You sign up for both of those. So let's start continuing to educate ourselves. Let's really start to have these discussions, because there is one thing that I am sort of looking forward to. I really believe that there are a lot of rhinos, as Donald Trump would say, Republican in name only. I think those are the people that say that they are fiscal Republicans. And I really do believe that with Joe Biden in office, they don't have to worry about not following the party. And fiscal Republicans can go back to being fiscal Republicans, but still following the Constitution, having values in our democratic system, having beliefs in people, so that, like Johnny is saying, this these slanderous terms that are created, this lack of empathy, these harsh things that in rhetoric that are coming from people's mouths that you've never heard before. Now, what's deep in your roots come to the surface at some point or another. But what we need to do is figure out, if we have disagreements with our government, we have a power. And it's not just election day, but that's our easiest day for us to stake our power. But also, from all this, learn the systems. Let's make the systems work for us before we judge them. But everybody have a good night. Johnny's going to be feeling better, taking back over. I had 2 weeks to kind of have round tables. And we're looking for not conflict. We're not looking for it just to be one-sided talks. We do value conservative opinions because we want to have these discussions. So come on, people. I don't want to call you out by name. You got a whole lot of things to post on your personal page. You got a whole lot of things to post. Every day you
bring that
something.
energy over here.
and you can't verbalize it once. Like one time, just verbalize it. But I do also think that the roots of some negative values might come out, so you might be scared to have a documented discourse about it. So, but everybody have a good night. It's been
Peace.
real.
Have a good night.
It's been
Look at the
fun. It's been real fun.
And I don't really think we got many questions, so there wasn't really much to really touch on as far as the Q&A.
There was some comments, but I don't think they were asking questions.
Yeah.
They were more so.
It was more just, statements. So I did try to pay attention to that. Vernon, I will say this, man. Like, look, it's one thing to say something on your personal page that people will respond to that may believe it. It's another to stand before someone who may disagree with that stance and express it. And just like that episode we had where we tried to discuss like why we couldn't get those oppositional views, it's fear. I mean, and I'm not trying to say that in a derogatory way. Like, that's a big step.
Right.
That is a huge step to stand in front of your peers with a belief that may not be congruent. Because now I'm on the spot and you may question me on those values, and I may not want to have to answer those questions because there is a chance I may find that foundation is on a pillar of salt. And no one wants to experience that. Certainly not live. Certainly not in front of,
Right.
I'm not going to say millions, let's say hundreds of people that see this. That is a big thing. And we tried to express the invitation in love, like, hey, we should be able to talk about this. And that's the thing. It's like, you can talk about something with people who agree with you and not grow, or you can have a difficult discussion with someone who doesn't agree with you and gain perspective, and you should be willing to change. I have my beliefs, and believe me, like, if you could give me something to tell me that my belief on the Second Amendment should be reduced in some way, I welcome that because I want to grow as a person. I'm still waiting for it. It has not happened. It has not happened. But I'm still open to it. That's the difference. Like, I am 100% strong in my belief, but not to the point where I will ignore information to the contrary. And I feel like my foundation in my belief is strong enough where I can have that conversation with anybody. You can be a lawyer, a soldier, someone who has put their life on the line every day with a firearm, and you have a different perspective than I do, but I am still firm and strong in my belief where I can have that conversation with you. You can rock my world, change my perspective, possibly, and I'm open to that. And I feel like that's where we need to get the change with these guests is like, you got to understand, we're not here to be yes men. You can come here and have a conversation and we may not agree with it, and we will be adults and explain to you why we don't agree with it. And we're just asking to have that conversation because we need to understand. If you're going to say these things, we don't understand them. So we need that clarification. And that's all we're looking for. We're not looking to defeat you. We're not looking to attack you. We're not looking to change you. We just want to understand. If you are going to sit here and tell me there is a justifiable reason why Floyd is dead, I want to hear what you have to say. I want to understand, because I can tell you right now, flat out, I don't understand that position. So I'm going to need clarification. And the only way we can get that is through conversation. So, it's not a matter of, having negatives come to light and people see who you really are. You post this stuff online every day. People already know who you are. So that's not a difference. It's just you got to explain it. That's the difference. We want you to explain these actions. That's what we need here. So please feel free to come.
I'll add one thing to that. A lot of people are actually afraid of pushback and being challenged as well.
Yeah.
You put it on social media, you're going to get pushback. Flat out. So instead of getting pushback,
but you can block people.
Come here. We got a mute button. I can use it, but I typically don't want to. So I'm not looking to suppress anybody.
Right.
It's in Parler. you know, it's not all one-sided. We want to have a robust communication, and I'm going to give people their opportunity to say whatever they want to say. This is 100% a safe place, obviously within reason. If you come in here talk about, well, we got to kill all the Jews, we're going to have a problem with that. But you know what? I'm still going to have that conversation because I don't understand, and I want you to justify your actions and your beliefs to people that don't understand. And I would hope at the end of that conversation that maybe you can pull back from where you were, because I feel like that's objectively a bad and wrong thing to say. So, you know, we can talk about opinions, we can talk about facts, right and wrong, whatever, it doesn't matter, but just be willing to have the conversation. That's all we ask. You know, if you feel like we're just jumping down your throat, you know, that's not what we're here to do, and there's no reason for that. What purpose do we have bringing someone into this arena to have a conversation just to jump down their throat? What do we gain in that? What do we get in benefit of doing that to another person? Absolutely nothing, because if I treat you adversely, we're not going to get anywhere in conversation. So that's not what we want to do. We're not here to name call, you know, or any of that nonsense. We literally just want to have conversation, and the only way that we can have a conversation and understand where these people that we don't agree with are coming from is if they come here and tell us why. That's all we're asking. You know, give us that perspective that we clearly lack so that we can all move forward, because right now we're all having a conversation and there is a key element of that conversation missing that we don't understand. And until these people are brave enough to step up, to truly defend their position, we're never going to get anywhere from either side. You know, because you could say that we're all full of crap, we're all wrong, we've got it wrong. That's fine. Tell us that so that we can understand. That's what we're looking for here. And we're not going to get that if people just stay in the comment section. And unfortunately, we've had people actually leave our chat group, our think tank, for these episodes, I guess because they feel like they were the enemy or something. I don't know. Like, I literally don't know, because we've had so many conversations week to week, back and forth, but they refuse to come on the show and air those beliefs to the open. And that just doesn't make any sense to me, that you can post a meme that says, if you're a BLM, you won't get protection if the police get defunded, which is, in my opinion, a threat. You can post that meme on social media for anybody that follows you to see. And if your account's not blocked, anyone at all to see. But yet you won't come to a place where you can have a conversation about that. That's the thing. That's the disconnect here. You know, like I said, all day today, you know, you're just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. There's no accountability. There's no answering for it. I'm just throwing it out there. I said it. It's out there in the ether now. It is what it is. I don't have to be accountable for those words. We're asking for accountability. That's one thing I will say. We are asking for accountability. So if you want to come here and you want to have a statement or a belief structure or system, you're going to have to be accountable for it. So maybe that's the reason why we don't have guests, because they don't want the accountability. But I know we're carrying over here after 10, but I do appreciate all you guys coming on. I'm glad I was able to stick through the episode with you. I look forward to next week, and hopefully it'll be a bit more of a discussion, more than round table, even though I do love these round tables. You know, it's called difficult discussions. We need to have some difficult discussions. Come on here and talk and be difficult with us, please. Have a good night, everybody.
All right.
All right. Have a good night.